I'd like to welcome everybody to Orlando Sentinel's editorial board interview for U.S. House District 8, which is mostly Brevard County. It starts at Canaveral National Seashore and goes down into Vero Beach, and then comes over and takes in part of East Orange County. Today we have with us the Democratic challenger, Joanne, who is a satellite engineer, and she is facing off with the incumbent Representative Bill Posey, a Republican, who was invited but chose not to be with us today. And we're going to spend a little while asking Ms. Terry some questions, and then we'll give her a chance to wrap up. And thanks for joining us. The first question that I had was, we just went through a major storm. One of the questions that has come up before is, Florida is one of the states that seems tied to natural disasters, but really right now, with the way the climate change has been, we are seeing natural disasters across the United States. And one of the ideas that has been floating around for a long time is the idea of a national catastrophic fund. Do you think that's a good idea? Or how do you feel, what changes do you think Congress should be looking at when it comes to natural disasters?
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you very much for having me today and the opportunity to have this interview. As an engineer, one of the things that I like to do are trade studies. And as you said, we're facing climate change disasters all across the country, right? From fires in the West and floods in the center of the country and the hurricanes down here. So I think right now we do have, FEMA, National Disaster Assistance, that has been overstretched for years. So I think that we do need to look at other options, like potentially a regional type fund that can deal with the unique disasters that they have in different areas of the country. I do not know whether or not that would be more cost effective or not, but I think it is something that we do need to look at, because I think that we are really going to be overstretching those budgets and the available funding as more and more of these occur. And I really think that we need to be looking at the mitigation techniques that are being proposed as well to help mitigate some of this weather, because besides being an incredible loss of life and property, it is a financial disaster as well.
Thank you. And I just wanted to follow up really quickly, because you did mention mitigation. That's what's going to be my next question. What else should Congress be doing to help states like Florida deal with the impact of global climate change, particularly sea level rise?
Sure. Well, I think that Congress needs to be looking at it from all angles. And I also want to say that, we can argue over what the causes of climate change is, but I think everybody at this point is realizing that climate change is real, and that these disasters are getting more and more frequent and stronger. And even I think both parties now are realizing that something needs to get done. And so I think we need to be looking at it from all angles, including, sea level rise, especially when it comes to the coastal communities. We may need to work with the local coastal communities to figure out what codes and what building ordinances are best to get people to set back. I know a lot of the building codes and a lot of the property and the rebuilding is local, but because we have these federal emergency management plans in place, and the federal dollars are expected to backfill a lot of that, I think that it does need to be a partnership between the local communities and the government to ensure that that everyone is doing as much as they can for that, because the government, the federal government, does have a financial interest in that. So I think all of the things that are being put in place and all of the things that the experts are suggesting that we do, we need to just go down that list and figure out how to get it done.
I'm going to ask a question that might be throwing you a little bit of a curveball. Admittedly, we hear a lot of candidates on both sides and that have positions that are largely party line positions. I'm wondering if you have any positions that sort of buck what would be considered traditional Democratic Party lines. If you can think of anything that the Democratic wing of Congress has voted for that you might have opposed or vice versa.
Yes, and actually, I consider myself to be an independent thinking Democrat, and I really want to kind of break up the whole party line approach that we seem to be taking more and more. I think that's a real disadvantage for constituents, especially here, because here in District 8 we have things that are best served by Democratic policies and things that are best served by Republican policies. But specifically, one of the things that I didn't agree with recently was the student loan forgiveness. I don't think that we should be outright forgiving the loans. I do think that we need to find a way to make people who owe money able to pay that off, like converting them to no interest loans and making principal tax deductible, or more incentives for companies to help pay back the student loans to help hire employees, as we have the job crunch. And we definitely need to be looking at the source of why secondary education academic education and vocational education after high school is so expensive. We have really quick, we have a friend that just got accepted to a PhD program at University of Central Florida for physical therapy, and she's going to come out making $60,000 a year, but she's going to be $210,000 in debt. There's something not right about that, and I think we need to deal with that issue as well.
Thanks for the specificity on that.
You're welcome.
If I could actually follow up on that real quick, I would say that and I'm sure you've sort of come up against this. In such a divided Congress, a divided legislature all along, coming in as a centrist, what are your expectations and what are the best ways that you think would be able to straddle that party line and be able to get things done?
Sure. Well, I've been looking a lot at the New Democrats caucus in Congress, and they are the caucus of basically the centrists. They're the ones that I still believe that there is a lot of work being done in Congress behind the scenes that is bipartisan, even though each party seems to want to be out front to rally their bases. So I want to join the caucus that is actually doing the bipartisan problem solving work and coming together and finding ways that we can come to agreement. I think that a lot of it is going to take compromise. I mean, we are a 50-50 country. And in this district, as you all I'm sure know, we vote 60-40 Republican. So I can't be pushing all Democratic policies. And I think that it's really important that that I find a way to explain to the people here in this district why the things that I'm voting for that are Democratic policies are in the best interest of the district. And I think the easiest way to do that is to get it, instead of having these big, huge legislation or bills that have so much into it, if we can simplify that and do things more on a topic by topic basis to pass, it becomes easier for me to be able to explain to our constituents and also to be able to pass in a bipartisan fashion, because it becomes harder to disagree just for political reasons if it really is something that's going to benefit the constituents of the districts.
Thank you again. You mentioned one thing that I sort of want to follow up on really quickly. What do you think beyond the bigger issues that everyone's talking about? Are there one or two issues that you think are very specific to your district that need to be addressed, and how would you go about that?
Oh, absolutely. The one thing that we really need to address here is our sewage infrastructure, and that ties right into the Indian River Lagoon. And the Indian River Lagoon is not necessarily specific to this district. It crosses a few districts, but the sewage issues that we're having, when we talk about Hurricane Ian, and the flooding in the center of the state. But then we've had raw sewage spills the last week because of the flooding here. And I live on the Grand Canal on the Indian River Lagoon. We've experienced those raw sewage spills and those algae blooms. So I really believe that we need to get more federal assistance, federal funding down here to deal with our sewage infrastructure, because it's not just for the district right now, but it's an environmental disaster waiting to happen. And we do have federal lands here that, so there is a federal interest. And I think one of the biggest things that I want to do is come together at the table with the local and the state representatives. And the second thing is, I think there's a lot in the tax code. The tax code is very unfair in a lot of ways. And I think a lot of the fiscal cliffs that are in there, a lot of the issues right now with standard deduction, there are things in there that at the federal level, I think that I can do to help our affordable housing crisis as well, that can be done at the federal level. I just want to make sure that I'm partnering with the state and local officials and elected representatives for all of these issues, and bringing all of the legislative and fiscal levers that I can from the federal government to the table to solve those issues.
Thank you. I wanted to talk a little bit about guns. There has been, some discussion of where next Congress should look in an attempt to reduce the amount of gun violence and the vehemence of gun violence. And we've seen some terrible cases recently. What further restrictions, if any, would you put on the ownership and on the carrying and display of firearms?
Yes, and that's a big issue. And here in this district, there are a lot of people who feel very passionately about their guns and feel very passionately about displaying their guns in public. I don't think it's legal here yet, but there is a group of people who want to make that open carry legal. And I talk to people and I tell them, I really don't believe that the founding fathers intended the Second Amendment to put guns in the hands of people that are gonna kill innocent citizens, kill innocent people, and we all want the freedom to be able to leave our house and go to our place of work and go to the store and go to school and feel reasonably certain that we're not going to get shot. And so I think we really need to try to get this partnership with responsible gun owners, because I really do believe that responsible gun owners want to see more expanded universal background checks, and that responsible gun owners want laws that require training when you purchase guns, and to be responsible for locking them up and handling them, and to hold people accountable when they allow their weapons to end up in the hands of others. And I think that it's going to take citizens to really stand up and say, we don't want to walk around our neighborhoods and go shopping and see all these people with guns and not know if they're the responsible ones or not. I don't want to live in that kind of a society. And I'm thinking the majority of people here don't either.
I'll pop in. You've mentioned a couple of times sort of what you sense as the values of your district. And I think your district is kind of interesting and unique. It's got an interesting mix. This is sort of a general question, but if you had to sort of summarize what you think are sort of the top issues, not that you necessarily care about, but that your district cares about, what do you think those are?
Oh, this district is so varied. Here on the Barrier Island where I am, you go up and down the streets and you'll talk to people about the Indian River Lagoon, right? But then as I go more into towards 95, people are talking about affordable housing. You go north into Titusville, people are talking about the sewage infrastructure and the sewage plant up there. And you go down into Indian River County and you'll hear about paved roads, not enough paved roads, and not having an internet infrastructure everywhere. So it's really about trying to tackle the needs of the entire district, because it is very varied. it is varied. So, but the thing that I think that binds most people right now is just the civility in our politics also. I mean, we've gotten to the point where we're yelling at each other, even if we don't know each other, just because of political party we think or know that we're affiliated with. And that's one of the things that I've been hearing from Republicans and Democrats everywhere is we've just got to stop the culture wars, stop believing things about each other, start talking to each other again. And I think most people here want government to work and want our government elected officials to, elected officials and representatives to work together for the betterment of the people and not constantly be working against each other to make the other party look bad.
And, you know, I might ask one little 30-second follow-up. This is a district. It is not all, I mean, it's not completely Brevard County, but it's largely Brevard County. This is a district that elects Randy Fine and sure. Bill Posey. Do you believe Wayne Ivey? Do you believe that this Democrat is ready to elect this district is ready to elect a Democrat, no matter how moderate or centrist?
I do not know. Because, you know, we are not an interesting enough district politically to have any polling, at least not that I know, of. So I think that if I can get my message out there that I am not this big, scary Democrat that people hear about on TV, I am not, you know, leftist socialist, pushing a woke agenda. I don't even think I know what that means. If I can get that to enough people and they can meet me face to face, then I think that they would be ready for that. Whether or not that I will have that widespread reach in this election, or it might take longer potentially for 2024. I think we absolutely have to get there. And even if I get close, so close that the GOP party here realizes that they're losing support because of their behavior, then that's good too. You know, there's a lot of us, besides Democrats, there are a lot of moderate Republicans. My husband is one of them. All of my neighbors up and down the street that are ready for the message that I have and the way that I want to represent the district. It's just a matter of getting out and convincing people that even though I'm a Democrat, that I really do want to represent the district in this way.
Thanks. Next time we'll have you and your husband debate then.
Well, what you will find is that I'm more conservative on some issues and he's more liberal on some issues. It's okay. Really interesting.
I think that there are a lot of couples like that.
Yeah.
And I actually wanted to ask you a question that that does kind of touch on some of the more liberal side of politics in Florida, at least as interpreted by our legislature, which is that Florida has not really touched the opportunity to expand Medicaid. But I wanted to ask you what changes you support to the current structure of Medicare, and if any, and if you wanted to address Medicaid as well, that would be fine.
Sure. Well, interesting. My husband went on to Medicare last March. He turned 65. That was after I actually registered for office. And our monthly premiums tripled because we were on the Affordable Care Act on the marketplace. And our whole structure just like shifted and changed in ways that we were not expecting. And we looked at the Medicare and the Medicare, the traditional Medicare, and what they have now is the Advantage plans. And I actually personally think the Advantage plans are kind of scary because I'm not entirely sure that people realize that they're not getting the kind of care necessarily that regular Medicare provides. I am not in favor of Medicare for all in terms of expanding it for everybody. I would like to see it expanded as an option to people who are 55 and older for a couple of reasons. First, because there are a lot of people who are ready to retire at 55. And I think that putting younger, healthier people into the risk pool helps to reduce the cost for everybody. I definitely think that we need to deal with the fiscal cliffs. If we can deal with some of those fiscal cliffs at the lower end, we find a way to get people the help that they, or the healthcare that they need, even if states decide not to implement Medicaid. I think that that's just it's really kind of sad that the states can just leave people without any help. So I would like to look and see how we can alleviate that.
Well, thank you. We have actually, and we covered a lot of ground. There's always so much more we could talk about. We could be here all afternoon. But unless my colleagues had another question, I really have enjoyed spending time talking to you. And in just a minute, I will give you an opportunity to make a closing statement. But I did want to let our readers know we will be making an endorsement in this race. That is our plan. But we do invite our readers and watchers not to just use that, to take a look at both the candidates in this race for themselves. Both of them have websites where you can take a look at their record and their discussion of the other's record. And then, of course, we'll have our excellent coverage as well. So just take a look and decide who best matches your values for this seat. And make sure that you vote on November 8th. And with that, I would like to invite you to take about a minute and a half or 2 minutes to kind of give everybody your pitch as to why you'd be the best choice in this race.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you for this opportunity. Yes, so I would like to say that, you know, I know that many districts, many voters in this district have never considered voting for a Democrat. And as you say, I really hope everyone will look at the issues, because I am not one of the media stereotypes. I'm not a far left socialist. But I am no longer willing to let the divisive partisan media and our corporate funded establishment politicians pit us against each other, because I really feel right now that the GOP is trying to consolidate power. They're taking away our rights, and they're planning to shift more financial burden to the working people of this district. When you look at things like Rick Scott's 11-point plan, I've talked with people from across the political spectrum here in our district, and everybody really wants the same thing at the end of the day. We want a fair shot at participating in our economic growth, and we want to protect our environment as we grow and ensure that our development protects our natural environment. So I will protect our individual rights and freedoms. I will also protect our right and freedom to be individuals. And I am asking for 2 years to prove that I can represent this district better, and I will fight for the right for voters to hold me accountable in 2024 if I don't. And I do want to just put in here that I have recently been endorsed by the National Security Leaders for America, because they also recognize that I am the best person in this race to protect our democracy and to protect our country. And my website is joanneterry.com. You can find out more about me, more about the voting records that we track. And I'm happy to answer any questions via email. And again, thank you very much.
Thank you so much. It's been a real pleasure, and I wish you the best of luck.